And welcome back to Hallowtide, a Halloween show. And today is the last episode of this podcast miniseries devoted to Halloween and autumn. And unlike the previous episodes, it's pretty much just going to be me riffing. So for the next, 15 to 20 minutes ish, it's just me talking about autumn. And the reason why autumn is such an important and fascinating season to me is, well, one, I was born in November, so I'm an autumn baby. But two, autumn just represents this. It just represents this shift in not only the weather. Obviously, the days are getting a lot cooler, nights are getting a lot longer, leaves are changing color and falling from the trees and all that stuff. But it also represents a shift in mentality as well, because because spring and summertime, everything's in bloom, everything's bright and sunny. You can't help but feel a bit optimistic because being in that atmosphere, you just can't help but just feel lively. Or as in the autumn, sure, you'll have those days where you still have vestiges of summer still hanging around, but for the most part, it's not the same thing. You don't really get that sunny optimism that you normally get, in the spring and summertime. Autumn has traditionally been associated with melancholy, and I can't speak for everybody, but sometimes I do feel a little bit wistful, a little bit melancholic, as I look out the window and just see leaves falling to the ground. And it's a bit irrational, granted, because it's just a bunch of leaves. Leaves fall from trees all the time, but there's just a much deeper allegory, much deeper meaning to what you're seeing, because it represents passage of time. It represents, life, the circle of life coming to an end. As that will culminate with the dead of winter, and we won't see it revive again until the springtime. And for me, autumn, for me, the autumn season not only represents that, but but as I said earlier, I am a November baby, and just the very thought of getting old can be a bit depressing sometimes, because in the back of my mind there's this desire to try to remain young at heart. But you find yourself growing old in spite of all attempts to try to cling on to youth. As much as you want to indulge yourself in comic books and toys and video games and all that stuff, there's also this gnawing feeling in the back of your mind where you have this almost innate desire to want to just do something that's more adult. Oddly enough, things that you would associate with adults, are a bit fascinating in a weird sort of way, such as, well, in my case, going to the Register of Deeds and having to swear an oath as part of my certification as a notary public. That became an interesting adventure in itself, which normally I wouldn't give two thoughts about. But another thing to keep in mind too is that with autumn, it's just so conducive to the holidays that we celebrate. Obviously Halloween, comes to mind because Halloween and autumn go hand in hand. Autumn just suits the very nature of the holiday, because it's all about death, it's all about decay, it's all about these strange mythologies around the fact that even in death there is a sense of life. Even though when it comes to Halloween, our understanding of what that life may be can vary. Obviously, we're thinking of revenants and zombies. Vampires, obviously, the living corpse that rises from the grave each night to drain the blood from unsuspecting victims. But but even then, I mean, autumn, you know, with autumn, arriving and becoming a very predominant and very overpowering sense of self arises from from its advent, if that makes any sense. I'm probably not making any sense. I'm probably just blabbering on as I normally do. But what I'm trying to say is that with the arrival of autumn, like I said before, there comes a shift in attitude. Obviously, there's a shift in clothing. I mean, my God, there are so many videos out there of people talking about these are the fall essentials that you need. These are the things that you need to wear for fall. There's a shift in cuisine as well. Obviously, pumpkin spice, if you're so inclined to pumpkin spice latte, or pumpkin beer, if you're more of the type to imbibe the spirits. I mean, traditionally in my household, we normally start breaking open the the liquor bottles around late September, October. So that's when we start drinking rum and whiskey and brandy and all that stuff. Because usually that's the kind of heavy stuff we don't touch during the summertime. We normally just drink lagers and sometimes ale if we feel so inclined. But there's just something about the season, sorry, that just calls for a shift, a change in the way that we think and the way that we live our lives. And I often have to ask myself, is it truly a state of mind that we find ourselves in when it comes to autumn? Is it a state of mind that is just built into us? I mean, because obviously with the animals, once autumn hits, you look up at the skies and you see geese and swans and ducks flying their V-shaped formations heading to warmer climate down south. Squirrels and chipmunks and other mammals, they're scurrying about preparing for the winter by collecting nuts and acorns and all that stuff. Maybe that's a sense that we have in our in our mindset when it comes to autumn. It becomes a state of mind as well as a season, as it were. Now in the previous episodes, I mean, I've spoken with guests about traditions and going to haunted places and pumpkins and costumes and everything. And if we were to talk about this at any other time of the year, people would look at you funny and think, well, he's clearly off his rocker. He's talking about things that don't make any sense. But even if it wasn't October, even if it wasn't Halloween just yet, if we were in autumn at its inception and we were to discuss these things, there's a bit more acceptance to it, because we speak of it in anticipation of what is to come. It's sort of like with the season of Advent, where we talk about Christmas and we start decorating, getting ready for Christmas, even though Christmas hasn't arrived yet. It's kind of this, similar in tone, if that makes any sense. I'm trying to explain it in a way that can be as clear as possible. But for me, autumn is not just a season; it's a state of mind, and I think it's something that's innate and inherent in all of us, as I've said before. I mean, looking outside right now, I mean, the colors of autumn, traditionally are, dark reds or burgundies, gold, orange, brown, dark greens, those dark muted tones. I mean, we take these colors and we embrace them, and we wear them as part of our clothing, and we use them as the colors of the holidays. Orange and black, obviously, for Halloween, then brown. I guess brown and yellow for Thanksgiving. And I guess Labor Day, it's anything but white, because traditionally, as the saying goes, never wear white after Labor Day. But when it comes to when it comes to autumn colors, it's the way I see it. It's us taking the change of tone in the earth and embracing it and making it our own. But not only that, it's to sort of imbue the spirit of autumn within ourselves, so we're able to become one with it, as it were. If the earth, if the earth is going through these changes, then so must we, because we are going through these changes as well. Maybe not physically, but mentally. Like I mentioned before, with the shift in fashion, the shift in culinary tastes, the shift in psychological attitudes, we begin to adjust ourselves, and by wearing those colors, we can conform more easily to the tone of the season. Because you would look downright silly, at least here in North America, if you were to still walk around in swim trunks and, one of those wife-beater shirts and just act like nothing has changed, even though the leaves are falling all around you and everybody's starting to wear jackets and putting pumpkins out on the front porch. But another thing too is that with autumn itself, or fall, should we say, it represents a magical time of the year, but it's also a very busy time of the year, because traditionally school starts roughly around fall, and as a child, fall represented the best time because you had so many things going on. You had the Halloween party, which as an elementary school kid was the best thing ever. You waited all year for it. And then, being a bibliophile in November, you had the book fair. And nothing made me feel more alive than running downstairs to the multi-purpose room to see, the books on display and just, browsing through the books and just picking which ones I wanted to buy and bring home. And this was before Thanksgiving too, because you also had the Thanksgiving play, and that was always a pilgrim. And even then, after the Thanksgiving play was over, you would start getting ready for the Christmas play, and you had to prepare, weeks in advance just to get ready for the big day. And obviously you have college football and professional football, at least in the U.S. If you live up in Canada, I think the football season is mainly in the summertime. But autumn just represents this magical time of the year where, in spite of the fact that things are starting to fall away, they're starting to die, they're starting to decay, there just seems to be this bursting of life. And this burst of life kind of just works in rebellion to this, to the spirit of the season, because even though meteorologically and naturally everything begins to fade away, life is in full swing, and that's the beauty of it. Because at least I know here in Charlotte, you have so many different festivals, so many different events going on that sometimes you just kind of have to make sacrifices and say, well, we can't go to this event this year, maybe we'll try again next year. I remember the big one last year was we went to the Dragon Boat Festival in Huntersville, and then obviously there's the Renaissance Festival, which runs from September to November. The Renaissance Festival just suits autumn so well here in Charlotte. And then recently, my friends and I, we started going to the pumpkin patch. Hall Family Farm in Lancaster, South Carolina. I released a video of it earlier, so check that out. But there are just so many traditions that you can create and follow, as part of the fall ritual. And I think, and that's another thing too. It's every season has a ritual that you undergo, a tradition that you follow, however minute or major it may be. I know here in Charlotte, the the fall season unofficially begins with the Greek festival, which usually runs like the week after Labor Day, and it lasts for 3 days. And for me, that's usually the unofficial start of fall here. And with all these festivals too, I mean, there's just so much food. It represents the the harvest, the bounty, the tradition of how people would gather up everything that's grown throughout the spring and summer, bring to the table, and call everybody in the village, the town, the community to sit down and partake, in this feast. It's as autumn as it can get, I think. And with these traditions, these some of them are newly made, others are tossed aside. But with the season of autumn, for me, it's become more than just a season. It's become a state of mind. Every December 1st, I walk around just anticipating, what to do next fall. Just wondering what else can be done, when September hits. What activities shall I do? What shall me and my friends do? What shall we drink? What shall we eat? It's a state of mind that is built within all of us, as creatures of the earth, as biological figures, as individuals with clocks. And I think for the most part, it's something that we've come to accept without really knowing that we've accepted. Because it's who we are. And for better or for worse, it's a part of our nature. So that's going to do it for the Hallowtide podcast. We'll be doing it again next year with Season 2, so be sure to check in then. But in the meantime, check out the Movie Pope podcast, where we review movies and interview filmmakers and actors. And be sure to check out the Bushwackers as well. Season 2 is currently underway. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch these episodes. And have a great day. Bye.